Hello, hello. How is everyone doing today? We are on week 4 of our weekly Homebuyer No BS Homebuyer Live. So, welcome everyone, week 4. Last week, I mentioned that we were going to be talking about credit, and that is what is on the agenda today. So, even if this feels maybe a little early in the process, I actually think this is the perfect time to discuss credit. Credit is one of the biggest reasons people self disqualify before even talking to a lender. They think their credit is really bad and they're like, oh, there's no way they're going to even look at me. And actually, it's not normally as bad as they think, and it's not as permanent as they think either. So, we are just going to address the elephant in the room from the get go so you can learn what you can do to prepare your credit and kind of what to actually expect with credit. So, first things first, credit is not a reflection of who you are as a person. Everyone kind of puts a lot of tout to this number. And if it's not the greatest, they don't want to share it. But if they've got great credit, trust me, you're going to know. But credit does have a reputation of being scary, complicated, and very permanent. Um, and kind of the assumptions with credit is that my credit is bad, so I can't buy, or I'm going to need years to fix my credit. I had some bad situations and it's just terrible, and I'm never going to get good credit, so I'm never going to be able to buy a house. But credit isn't a moral score. It is just a snapshot of how you have used debt, and snapshots can change. So that is what we're going to be talking about with credit, and how credit is actually viewed from a lender's perspective and what kind of things can change it. So, let's talk a little bit about what credit scores actually look like in the real world. There actually isn't just one credit score. So, you've got credit cards that'll show you different scores. You've got FICO scores. You've got things from banks when you pull out a car. There's actually, I think it's like 52 different types of credit scoring models. The banks typically are using like FICO 2, 4, or 5 to base off of your credit. Your credit cards online are what are called Vantage scores, and they have a different algorithm to determine what your credit is. So just because you see a credit score on one app, or maybe you pull a report and you get one here, like Credit Karma or something, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the credit that the bank is going to be pulling. So just something to kind of think about and understand, because I've, looked at my Vantage score and then we pulled out a loan and I'm like, what? My Vantage score was way higher, and not a significant amount, but like a couple points. And I'm like, I should have had a better credit score when you pulled my credit. So just recognize that there are different scoring models and all of that stuff. So the average credit score, I think it's nice to kind of know, like, nationally, what people are, actually scoring on their credit. Because if you're not talking about it, you might not know. So I have this handy little chart. Let me see here. That talks about, let's see, is that a little better? That talks about the average scores for US people. This came from Experian. Um, and their actual average, like total US average, was around 715. So you're looking in the like good category. Poor scores, you're looking about 14% of the population. Fair scores, which is typically where you're going to get like an FHA loan, is 580 is the lowest they'll go. This is typically like the home buying range. About 15% of people are in that. And then actually the majority of people are in good, very good, and almost 25% in exceptional, which I thought was kind of surprising, um, considering you hear so many bad things about credit all the time, but really a quarter of our population has really great, exceptional credit. So just something to kind of consider. And again, with like loans, I would say the 580 mark is kind of that's the low side. You're not going to get the best interest rate, sadly, but you can still get a loan. If you're going below that, you're probably looking at special programs, which, not to say it's not an option, but maybe it would be worth working on your credit to kind of get up into the fair, good, and obviously very good and exceptional are ideal numbers because that's where you get the best interest rates. Um, but most like first time home buyers are low to mid 700s. So I would say in the good category is probably the most common for a first time home buyer. Um, so that's pretty cool. But again, better credit does mean better interest rates. So even if you're in the good category, trying to get to the very good or the exceptional isn't going to hurt you. It's going to help you. So awesome. Now that we've kind of looked at what credit actually looks like, where people actually are in their credit journey, and all of that stuff, and kind of, being able to compare to the masses, it's really not that scary and it's okay. But let's talk about what a lender's looking at when they're looking at your credit. Um, they're not judging you based on how you're spending your money, they're assessing how risky you are to lend to. So, things they care about most are on time payment history, how much credit you have available, how long you've had credit open, and if you've been pulling credit out a lot lately. So they don't care that your credit isn't perfect, but they want to know these things to make sure that they're not lending to a riskier person and going to have issues later, because that just means more paperwork and problems for them. So just kind of want to keep that in our mind when our lender's looking at our credit score. And actually, lenders are a really, really good resource for like credit counseling. If they see something and they're like, "Hey, what is this on your credit?" You may find that you have a mistake on your credit and it's worth checking into, or they may say, "Hey, your utilization is a little high. I think if you got that down in a month or two, your credit score is going to change, and you'd probably be better qualified or get a much better interest rate if you did these things." So don't be afraid to have a lender look at your credit score and your credit report because they can actually kind of help coach you. One thing I do think we need to talk about, because a lot of people are buying houses with partners or spouses, um, something that kind of surprises people is they don't take the average of your two scores. They typically take the lower score and then base your loan off the lower score. So sometimes it makes more sense if you can qualify with just one person to just have one person on the loan. You could always put two people's name on the deed. But if you can just qualify with the one person's income and credit, you might be able to get a better interest rate. And then later, when you refinance or buy a different house, you've worked on your credit, increased it, and then it doesn't really matter. But same thing goes with co-signing. If you have a co-signer, they're still going to take your lower score and give you an interest rate based off the lower score. They're just going to take the income from the co-signer. So just something to be aware of. I haven't heard of a situation where that's different. I'm sure it could be, but just err on the side of caution and prepare your finances as if they're taking the lower credit score. Um, it's just talking different strategies and how to adjust if you need. And if you don't have to have two people on a loan, great. My husband and I, when we bought our first rental property, I wasn't really beneficial to the loan. We weren't married at the time either, so there was a couple reasons why we didn't put both of us on the loan. But I wasn't on some of our first rental property loans, and that's just fine with me. It made more sense that way. Um, Another thing that people don't quite understand, and probably the biggest fear is like, "Oh, I don't want to talk to a lender. They're going to run my credit score and they're going to do a hard pull and it's going to ruin my credit." Will your credit see a change? Yes. It's normally like 6 to 10 points in about a month long. Um, One thing that people also don't realize is you get a shopping window. So if you're going to get your credit pulled from a lender, that is when you should shop around, because depending on which score, you won't get dinged again if you do it within 14 to 45 days. I always tell my clients to do it within 14 days. One, because you've already gotten all of the paperwork already put together, so you might as well just send it to a couple different lenders that same day and not even worry about these timelines, because you already have it all ready. Just get it done, shop around, and then you can compare cost estimates. You can look at rates, fees, and all those things without dinging your credit again and again. Um, so I always recommend people do that intentionally, so that way you're not dinging it again and again. That fear of, oh no, my credit score is going to drop, isn't a big even though it isn't a big deal anyway, it's temporary and pretty low credit things. Um, but then you can still shop around and get everything done anyway without multiple dings. Also, some people just don't know where to even get your credit report. You are entitled to free credit reports from all three of the major bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, once a year without any kind of ding to your credit. I go to annualcreditreport.com. Honestly, it's good to go on there if you're even considering like looking at a loan. Just get your credit report. Then you can kind of check out like, oh man, I keep seeing I saw a random address and a name I'm not familiar with. That could be identity fraud happening, and you want to get that cleared up before you're getting your loan, so that way you don't have to clear it during the process. Also, it's just kind of nice to see, your total debts out there, kind of just in one place, and what that is showing. So it's really good practice to do that once a year to just kind of check in on everything, make sure everything is good to go. And if something is wrong, or a lot of times student loans, they'll pay them off and then they'll keep tracking even though it's paid off. You want to get that shut down so that way it just clears everything, and make sure everything's good. So it's a really good practice to do that. And again, that was annualcreditreport.com. And that gives you the full report, not just the score. So if you find errors, you're going to see it in there. Whereas if you kind of just look on your phone, you might have some info, but a lot of times it won't have details. One thing I run into a lot actually with first-time homebuyers is when they have no credit. And no credit isn't bad credit. It just means there's no data, and then the bank can't determine if they can lend to you because they don't know if you're risky or not. The most common way I've heard with lenders to establish quick credit is to get a secured credit card. So what you do is you put down a deposit, typically like $200 to $500. That becomes your credit limit. You use it, pay it on time. And in most cases, a secured credit line can be reported to a credit bureau within 6 months. A lot of times it's sooner than that, but kind of plan for 6 months if you have zero credit whatsoever. And the reason I think they do the secured line is because it's guaranteed to be reported. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on that. A lender could tell you more, but anytime we have someone that doesn't have credit, it's always mentioned a secured line of credit. You could also just take out a regular credit card. But I think the secured one is a little bit quicker on reporting to the bureaus. So it makes it faster for you if you want to get credit sooner. And people think that you have to have years and years and years worth of credit history to get any kind of credit. Really, that's not the case. If you have good on-time payments for about 6 months, you're good to go. You're going to have a score, and typically it's good. So don't let the fear of credit takes years to repair or years to establish. It can be done in a season. So let's talk a little bit about what actually makes up your credit score, because a lot of people waste a lot of energy here and they're just not really sure what they should be doing. The biggest percentage is payment history. And most of the algorithms, which keep in mind the algorithms are not posted, this is just kind of industry knowledge. Payment history makes up about 35% of the score. So on-time payments are going to be the biggest thing. If you have something like, you have a credit card and you forgot to pay it, you're a day late or a couple days late, you can call the credit card company and see if they can remove that. And that can really help your score. So if you're, just a little forgetful or you don't have auto pay set up, don't be afraid to call the credit card company. They can write these things off. You just have to, do some customer service phone calls, which aren't always fun. But if you're buying a house in the near future, it can be definitely worth it, especially for just like a date mix up. So 35% payment history. So pay on time. That's the biggest thing. Another section of your credit score is utilization. So how much of the credit that you have available are you using? Let's keep numbers simple. Let's say you have $1,000 credit card. That's the only kind of credit you have open, and you have $500 in debt. Like you need to pay back $500 on your credit card. That would be a 50% utilization rate. A good tip is to keep it 30% or under. So if you can pay off 200 of that and only have 300 at any given time, that's ideal. That kind of helps boost up your score anywhere from 0 to 30% of utilization. If you just open your credit, I think they try to say like 10%. Like if you were just, starting that secured line, do the 10% and pay it off every month and you're good. But ideally you want to be 30% or less on your utilization. And then another section of it would be the length of history, makes up about 15% of your credit score. So if you have a card, like for example, I have a card that when I was in college, I opened it to go study abroad. And I don't even know where that card is. I am surprised the account is still open, but I will not shut that account down because that is my longest credit history. And that looks really good on my credit report because it's been open since I was in college, 16, 17 years ago? Oh no, 10 years. 14. I don't know. I'm getting old. But anyway, so you don't want to necessarily just close a card down just because you don't use it, especially if it's your oldest card. If it's your second oldest card, it's probably not as big of a deal. Just make sure that you're following the rules. Like sometimes you have to do one transaction a year. Otherwise, they'll automatically shut it down. So you don't want to be surprised when you're going in to get a loan and then suddenly your long credit history is shut down and you're like, what's going on? Just kind of pay attention to that because 50% is a decent amount of the score. Another portion of the score is types of credit. So home loans, aka mortgage loans, car loans, credit cards, store department cards. What kind of credit is part of your score and how you're utilizing it, and if you're obviously paying it on time. And then new credit inquiries make up another 10% of the score. So if every time you go shopping at a store and they have a store card, you're applying for it, and say you do that 5 to 10 times a year, that doesn't look very good to a credit reporting agency. I think what we typically say is about 2 lines of credit each year is not going to hurt your score. So please don't be signing up for all of the store cards all the time. Just kind of keep that in mind if you want to hack your credit. Those are some of the tips and tricks and how your credit is made up. Top 5 ways to improve your credit. I'll kind of go through this quickly because we're kind of running short on time here, but pull your full score, pull your full credit report, not just your score. You want to check and make sure you don't have errors. Lower your utilization. Again, that 30% is kind of a goal, 30% or less. Make on-time payments. I always recommend people at least set up an automatic payment for the minimum amount. So that way you're never missing a payment. In my industry, our income is kind of all over, so I like to pay mine at different times, but I always have auto pay set up on my minimum, and then I pay it off the rest throughout the month. Make on-time payments and don't just automate it, make it easier on yourself. Don't open and close accounts randomly, especially leading up to buying a house. Anytime you really change your credit, the bank's like, what's going on? It kind of weirds them out. So don't change a lot of things. Like don't buy a new credit card with all the furniture you're going to put in your house right before closing, because then you're going to be screwed. Or don't get a new truck to haul all your stuff to your new house. Real stories that have happened. And then if you are stuck, there are people that can help you with this, especially if you have a lot of medical debt or issues on your credit report. It might be worth going to a professional. I like My Credit Guy. They do this all the time. They don't have any special resources beyond what you're going to do, but they talk to creditors every single day. So sometimes that can really help. And then one last thing that people are really worried about is how fast credit can change. Credit doesn't always take years to improve. It's not a 5-year game. It can be a 5-year game depending on things, but it doesn't always take that long to improve. You can see meaningful changes within 60 to 90 days by paying down balances, making sure errors are getting corrected, and just kind of organizing things. So that's why we're talking about credit early, and be sure to talk with your lenders about it. They will have tips and tricks, and they've seen this every single day. So they've got good insight to help you boost that credit and get you the best interest rate possible. So for this week's action step, it is simple and powerful. go pull your credit report, look for any errors, note your balances, and then take a deep breath and don't panic because it's going to be okay. This information gives you control and allows you to change things and just be in the knowledge and be aware of them. And maybe you'll look at that chart and say, "Hey, I actually have pretty darn good credit. I'm probably just fine." So I hope this has been helpful to you. If you want help understanding how credit fits into your realistic home buying timeline, you can book a call with me. We can do a buyer roadmap, go through kind of your game plan, what you need to learn. And then next week, we are going to be talking about the 5 pillars of home readiness. So you can assess how ready you are to buy and figure out, on the checklist, really what you need to get done until you're ready to buy. And as you know, I'm very pregnant. I am here today. I expected to have a baby by now, but I don't yet. So, depending on when this baby comes, we may or may not see each other next week, but I will be back in touch um, for the coming weeks too. But we will talk about home readiness at some point very soon. Well, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a great day. I hope that cleared up some questions about credit and made it a little bit easier for you and made you feel better about it. I will see you next time. Bye bye.